Better World Blueprint. Good humans doing good things.
Watching news and scrolling through social media can be a bit like junk food for your mind. You just end up feeling bad. This podcast, however, is like the most delicious food for your soul. I'm Siobhan Hunt, and each episode I speak to someone who's making the world a better place. Good people doing good things that will make you feel good about the world. Welcome to A Better World Blueprint. Life can take you on very interesting paths while you're finding the right one. For Gus Worland, it was a hugely successful career in commercial radio, including 10 years at the helm of the Triple M breakfast show, The Grill Team. But during that career, he realised he had unfinished business elsewhere. Still haunted by the death by suicide of a close friend and mentor, Gus decided to found a charity called Gotcha for Life, designed to increase mental fitness in men and to reduce the suicide rate. This year, he left his career in radio to focus fully on the charity. I hope you enjoy this chat with Gus Worland, founder of Gotcha for Life. Hello, Gus, and welcome to A Better World Blueprint.
Oh, thank you. Lovely to see you again. I wish it was in person, so I'll give you a big hug, but nice to see you.
Can't let you go by without a hug, Gus. Now, obviously you've had a whole career in media before you started doing the work that you are doing now. But what led you to change your focus? Did you have a wake-up moment where you said, okay, Gotcha for Life is what I want to do as opposed to media? Was there a moment where it was crystallised for you?
Yeah, look, definitely. I was 38 and I was a salesman and eventually got a really great opportunity to do some TV, and then off the back of TV got a chance to do brekkie radio on Triple M, and then 6 years into that I decided to be vulnerable and I suppose brave one morning as I was driving across the Harbour Bridge. It was about 4 a.m. and I was like, we just talk about the same stuff every day. We talk about sport, we tell jokes, we have a lot of fun, but we don't really talk about anything of real depth or something that could really be important for our listeners to get to be enjoying. Rather than just ringing up to win a ticket, let's ring up and get involved in the show in a real personable way. So I told my story about my friend who took his own life, and I did nothing about it for many, many years except have too many drinks on the anniversary. And I told my mate's story and why I thought he took his own life, and the next 90 minutes changed my life forever, because on Triple M that morning we didn't play another song, another news, another traffic report. We just had people phone in going, me too, this is what happened to me. And some of those people that phoned up were just so hard to get the words out, but we had lots of silence and eventually they got the words out. It was really emotional. I drove home to my wife that morning and I said, well, there's so many people worrying alone and I think I want to do something about it. So the Man Up program on the ABC was made, and then off the back of that, then that was never was really a job. After about the first 2 hours of filming, I just went, this is what I should be doing. And I started Gotcha for Life, and we're in our 9th year now. And I'm very lucky that I sort of was able to run a few things side by side, but eventually in Radioland, I just felt that I wasn't quite doing either job, running Gotcha for Life and radio as well as I could. So one had to be given the flick, and I could never give Gotcha for Life the flick. So, and I've been very easily replaced at Triple M. I don't think I could be replaced at Gotcha for Life in terms of, being the founder, the passion piece. Of course, it's grown because of other people, but there's something I'm very proud of what we've started and created, and the money we've raised, and the real focus on suicide prevention.
What I find really fascinating about that story is that it almost kind of pivots on a dime, you could say, that drive into work and that decision to be vulnerable. It's really profound, isn't it? Because the environment you're talking about, it's not just media, it's Triple M, which has a certain kind of blokey masculinity about it that is rather brash and not exactly what you think as vulnerable.
No.
But making that decision to really be that vulnerable on air, it, like you say, it changed everything. But is it crazy to you looking back that was that intuitive decision, especially at 4 a.m. in the morning? Like, it's like
I think I get a little disappointed that it took me so long. Like, I was 6 years into the stint on Brekkie Radio, and I suppose I give myself the first couple of years because we were just trying to build this new show, and there was a lot of pressure on the show because a few shows before it hadn't gone well, and they might have even blown up Triple M if that show didn't work, the Grill Team. That's what we were told. So I was like, and plus I brought my family over from England. We're very settled in England, 3 little kids in primary school, my wife English, very happy in this little village with a sister and cousins. And I sort of went, I wouldn't mind giving this radio thing a go. And so I felt a lot of pressure the first few years, and then eventually I had the guts to talk about it. But it was absolutely one of those moments where I just went, bugger it, I'm going to go for it, And you've been in these meetings, these production meetings where you throw it out there and everyone's silent, something a little bit different to what we normally talk about. But I've got to say my team and my co-hosts were just like, absolutely, let's do it at 8:00. Like, we could have buried it at 6:15, and it just would have been a ticker box type thing. But they said, let's turn on the mics at 8:00 and go for it. And for some of your listeners that may not know, that's the Hollywood hour, that 8:00 hour where most people are listening to you. So they got right behind it. And my role in the show was very much to have the Mickey taken out of me. And there was none of that this particular break. It was very, very beautifully done by everyone. And that's why I think so many people phoned up and wanted to talk, because they knew that it was something a little bit different, but they felt safe in our show because they had obviously woken up with us for so many years. So it was a really lovely combo. And then to get Man Up right was super important. And someone texted me yesterday that Man Up's back on ABC iView, which is great. And it was made in 2016. So that makes me feel really proud. And it was a little show that did really, really well. We gave it away to the world through COVID, and a lot of people picked up on it. And, that was the moment where I went, I've probably got more work to do in this area.
There's something magic in that realization, wherever it came in that experience. So you had that incredible experience on air. What did you decide to do next? So you did the show. You obviously, that's a natural flow in a way to be doing other things about this topic in media. What made you decide, or what did you do after that to actually got you for life?
Well, very, very luckily, the lady who ended up sort of making Man Up, she was in the car with her 2 boys, dropping them at school. And she would not have normally been listening to Triple M. She was more likely to be listening to the ABC. And it got her thinking, this guy could be the guy to host this program, because she had been given some money from Movember to come up with a documentary idea around masculinity and challenging that masculinity. So perfect timing again. She rang up Triple M, got my number, and I met her the next day, and we just hit it off really, really well. And Jennifer Cummins is her name, and she's an absolute ripper, beautiful storyteller. And we did a whole lot of work, and in the end, she ended up not using a lot of it because she said, you know what, we've got to go down the heart with you, Gus, rather than the conversations with researchers and white papers and that sort of stuff. Let's go to the heart of the issue of me just asking questions of all sorts of Aussies. Why do we have so many people that worry alone and make these decisions to not be around and stuff? So, and like I said, a few days into that filming, I went, wow, this is, I think, a calling for me. And then Gotcha for Life seemed a very natural thing off the back of it. I could have easily been an ambassador for Are You OK Day or Beyond Blue or Black Dog. But I went, you know what, I want to have a more positive conversation around prevention of suicide. And I think the only way we can do that is to do it ourselves. And, we've raised $22 million so far over the 9 years, and we continue to work really hard. I've never felt more passionate about it, and we just need to get this suicide rate down. We lose 7 blokes a day every day, 2 women every day, and someone attempts in Australia every 8 minutes. So I don't want to live in an Australia like that. So I'm using everything I've got to get out there and talk about that as much as possible.
So having a profile helps because you have those connections within media, but a charity is a completely different model to whatever you'd done before, I'm assuming. How did you go about setting up the charity? Did you have people you knew who could help guide you, or were you completely in the dark? How did that go?
I had no idea what I was doing. So there was a couple of people that I trusted who were smart and business people, and I said, look, this is what I'm trying to do. What's the best way of doing it? And they just helped me, and then put a board together of also smart people, chuck an accountant, a lawyer in there, people that you trust or someone that you trust that person, and you just go for it. And I had the same board for the first 5 years, and then we sort of had a bit of a rejig. But certainly it takes a village to do anything, and certainly to build this, and also how much money it costs to actually get it. You need people to back you to get all the right paperwork so you can become, something that someone can give you some money and they can get some tax breaks and stuff, which is a huge part of it. So, it took me a little while, but we eventually got there, and I'm very proud of Gotcha for Life and the awards it's won and the recognitions that we've got. It's celebrating for like a New York minute every time something goes well, because you still look at those stats and you go, wow, are we just doing all this work just to keep the stats where they are? Or will we actually eventually in time, a generation or two, become something that people go, oh, that's a moment where that really helped. So it's very, very difficult when you're working in prevention to actually realise what sort of job you're doing. And that's why it's so hard and emotional to do the work that we do.
Did you ever stumble, whether that was in terms of finding the support you needed for the charity, or I guess even the fact that this is founded on essentially a really personal and painful story for yourself that you have had to tell many, many times over? Was there a moment that was hard, or have there been moments that's hard along the way?
Oh, look, for sure. I mean, I would say even with Profile and even with the work that we're doing, I would be told no 95 times out of 100, but in a nice way. Like love the work you're doing. Congratulations. However, we are, and it's normally supporting something else that's close to the CEO or close to someone who's organising it. And of course, there's so many wonderful charities out there and causes that need the support. So you just take a big deep breath, you shake their hand or you give them a hug if appropriate, and you walk out and you're in that lift and you're coming back down and you're trying to find your car and in the car park, and you're just like, oh, God, I really thought we're onto something here. And it's just another bitter disappointment. And then something will happen where someone will stop you in the street and tell their personal story of, hey, you've saved my life. Or I'm at an event and someone comes up to me and explains how we've really helped them with their mental fitness. So there's so many positives that go with the negatives. We had a Gotcha for Life function at a hotel not so long ago, and the hotel, they can't give us money, but they give us rooms so we can do seminars and stuff in there. So we were having one of our freebie days where we're trying to learn from each other and so forth. And as I was walking to dinner, I had my whole team with me, and this bloke who was checking in at the hotel turned around and said, Gus, and in front of the whole team, he said, I can't tell you, but your new mental fitness app, it has saved my life. Now, he then went to talk about that for a couple of minutes. We all sat and listened to him, and then I shook his hand, gave him a hug. He went back to check in. I turned around, and the lady that was running the app was right there. Like, she's never heard that. And I said to them, I hear it all the time. I also get times where it isn't so positive, believe me. But that is what I get a lot. And you guys have got to understand that the work you're doing, beavering away, at home or in the office, this is the reality of what you've done has changed that person's life. So it's you got to remember that. But I've also had moments where I get about 1,000 messages a day and they're from Messenger, right? So not necessarily people I know, but through social media. And someone has reached out to me and I haven't got back to them and they've taken their life. And then a member of the family will then have a crack at me and say it's my fault. So that happens too. So that's that yin and yang of working in this particular area. And of course, I understand why they're having a go, because they're in absolute trauma and sadness and emotions. But yeah, those are moments where I certainly go, well, you know what? It's too bloody difficult. What's the point? I could just go back to doing a radio show, and my kids are all growing up now, and my wife and I can just live happily without all this pressure and drama. But there's always something that brings me back. So there's certainly yin and yang in this work. And I think anyone that runs a non-profit will feel the same way.
In terms of how you manage your work-life balance, I've spoken to lots of people who are, for this podcast, who are very passionate about what they do. And obviously, when you're trying to make the world a better place, there is a sense of responsibility as much as there is fulfillment in the work. How do you find that work-life balance when you feel that responsibility for the work you're doing?
I think it's nearly impossible to get that balance right. And I certainly haven't got it right. I was talking to some people, and you and I were talking before we hit record here today, because we know each other, so we're having a bit of a catch up. So many people that I know that are trying to do good work, like you say, trying to change the world in some way. That's probably our biggest thing, is we're people pleasers. We want to say yes all the time, which means that the balance goes. And I'm learning slowly but surely, but I'm 57. I'm probably more likely to say yes and then go, oh, I've got to do that now. And once I go there and do it, I actually enjoy doing it. It's the thought of, it's the drive, it's the do, it's the drive back, maybe a 3 or 4 hours. And you go, well, that 3 or 4 hours, that's helped that cause out. But it's the 3 or 4 hours where you're not resting, you're not with your family and friends, you're not with your own children, or you're not just doing what you need to do to make sure you're okay. So it's a bit like getting on the plane and they talk about the oxygen mask, and I never understood that, especially with children. Like, I'd always put my own kids first. But I've learnt, Siobhan, over the last couple of years in particular, that if I do put the oxygen mask on myself, then I'm more likely to be more efficient and better at what I'm trying to do. So, but still, it's a real difficult one, because I've spent all my life just saying yes, and now I feel awful when I don't say yes.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of people that would relate to that. Do you think this work has changed you?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I lived in a bubble for years, and now I'm a lot more open, a lot more understanding, a lot more open to, you know what, I don't understand that behavior. I don't understand why they say that, but there've got to be a reason for it. So all of a sudden I've become really curious, and curiosity is just the most important thing for me now. So where I was a little bit shut off and thought, well, that's just the way it is, I'm not like that at all. And that's probably the best thing that's happened, that's come out of running Gotcha for Life, around all the other positives. But for me personally, I'm a better father. I'm a bit more open. I listen better. I'm not such this my way or the highway type person. I still might say no to certain things, but I get all the information now, and that comes with that curiosity piece. So I'm very, very thankful for that, because there's some times where I parented in a way that I look back now and go, mate, what were you doing? But it was what I was sort of taught, or what I saw and what I believed to be the way. But this new generation, my 3 kids included, are a very different group to my sort of generation and the generation and a couple below me. So being curious has made my life a lot easier as a parent, and I think also as someone who runs an organisation like Gotcha.
You have mentioned a few things that have happened where you've seen the impact of your work. I'm just wondering if you might have one more that we can end on, something that stayed with you since you started Gotcha for Life.
Yeah, this one I never, ever grow old telling, and it makes me very emotional, and I love it. There was a guy in his 30s, And he actually went to Bunnings and bought the rope, and he was going to take his own life. And it was sitting in the back of his car, and he thought, I'll just go to my mum and dad's and just say goodbye. And, of course, mum and dad just thought it was son dropping in for a cup of tea at 8 o'clock at night. Well, they were watching the Man Up program. And this is a guy that would never, ever be watching the ABC or listening to the ABC. So for him, it was all a bit sort of like, okay, well, the telly's on. So he sat down, his mum made him a cuppa, and they watched the show together. And he just sat, and he said he enjoyed it. And there was like a little thing in his brain that sort of went, oh, that's interesting. Perhaps I hadn't thought of that. Anyway, he ended up going back and watching the second and third episodes with his mum and dad. And it just made him rethink everything. He then decided to do a marathon, which he did in Canberra only about a month or so later, because a lot of the times with people that are going through a really dark place, they forget all the stuff that makes them happy. And I've done this with heaps of athletes in particular. They actually go back to what they're good at, and it gives them a bit of a boost and so forth. So anyway, I was also running at the time. I did a marathon back in 2014 in New York, and I did 6 or 7 half marathons, and I happen to be doing the half marathon down in Canberra. So I'm running along, and we're running out to this spot in Canberra where you do a loop and come back into the city. Now he's flying back the other way, and he goes, "Hey, Gus, you saved my life." And I'm like, "Hey, thanks, mate." He sort of gone before I sort of realised, and my mates that are running with me are going, "Did you just say that you saved his life?" I said, "I think so." So that's interesting. Anyway, we go round, we come back in ourselves, and we finish eventually. And there's the guy shivering. He's only about 60 kilos, wringing wet. He's got one of those sort of silver things around him, keeping him warm. He's munching on a banana and a muesli bar. And he goes, "I'm the guy that ran past." I said, "Oh, mate, we're all wondering what you spoke about." And he goes, and he told me this story of he going to his parents. He sat down and watched the show. It made him rethink. And eventually he took the rope back to Bunnings. And he said he was so pleased that he'd kept the receipt because he got the money back on the rope. And I'm like, you seem more excited about saving the dough on the rope than actually you coming to the realisation that you wanted to be around. But that was sort of the joke that we did. And we just laughed and hugged. And I went, wow, all the times you are working hard and you think, well, I never would have known that story if he hadn't been running and he hadn't seen me, and it just worked. And that just pumped my tires up and just filled me full of like, okay, here's the next bit of energy I needed. So that's sort of the one, I suppose, that is best to describe. And you can imagine the feeling that I felt driving home from Canberra that day. I was on cloud 9.
And what strikes me about that is also that the ripple effect of how you saved that family so much sorrow and devastation. Like it's almost the ripple effect, but then it's coming back in. So instead of it all going out and exploding, that him watching your show.
Yeah. They say 170 people are impacted by each suicide. I think that number's way too little, actually. I think there's many more people than that because, your associates, the people you work with, the clubs you're involved in, your whole community, just ripple effect, like you say, goes out in such a sad way. So I've never seen that guy before or since, but that day was one I'll never forget.
That's amazing, Gus, and the work you do is incredible. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. It's great to see you, and I hope that you and your listeners enjoyed the last half an hour, which has gone so fast.
Gus Worland, founder of Gotcha for Life. As always, I'm on the hunt for people like Gus. So if you know someone like him making the world a better place, please let me know. You'll find my email in the episode notes. I'm Siobhan Hunt. See you next time on A Better World Blueprint.